Hello everyone and welcome to Monday Morning Must Knows. My name is Merlin Rothfeld and May is officially done. It's over, meaning we can now look back and see if the mantra sell in May and go away holds true. It sounds so evil and ominous. Well, if you sold in May, you probably missed out on some pretty good opportunity. I follow 8 major markets every single day to get a clue as to what's going on in the overall economy. Those markets, you ask? Well, number one, we'll look at Bitcoin. We'll look at the 10-year yield. I'm looking at crude oil. I'm looking at the US dollar. I'm looking at the Russell, the Dow, the S&P, gold. All of those markets give me clues as to where markets are going. And only one of them was down in May, and it was just barely down, like a half a percentage point. And that was the US dollar. Everything else showing pretty nice gains, even the S&P up like 5%. So let's dive into what might be moving this market this week. We do have some pretty big news, especially coming off the heels of major data last week. We'll start things off as usual with our earnings calendar. Now on Monday, there is nothing slated on the earnings calendar that's of significance, but on Tuesday, we see some names show up that might be familiar. You see we have CrowdStrike, Hewlett-Packard, Dollar General, Guidewire, and NEO. On Wednesday, we've got Dollar Tree and Five Below, rounding out the retailers there since we had retail sales a couple weeks ago. And on Thursday, you've got Broadcom, Lululemon, DocuSign, and Ciena rounding out the earnings calendar. Actually, we got one more because they now did a major Bitcoin play. I put GameStop back on the calendar just to see the crazy volatility that might show up based off of GameStop's reporting. Now, of course, they are now becoming a Bitcoin treasury, as are so many other companies, which in my opinion should have a pretty good impact on the upward trajectory of Bitcoin over the coming months. Now, let's talk about other pieces which may move the market. There is no rate statement this week, but there certainly is some new information for Jerome Powell to talk about. As you guys might recall, we had a CPI number come out on Friday. We have another one coming out this week, which is going to be the unemployment rate on Friday. And that leads us to the man, the myth, the legend. Mr. Jerome Powell will be speaking yet again. He is going to be doing a presentation at the Federal Reserve Board of Governors International Finance Division's 75th Anniversary Conference. I will not repeat that one again. It's so darn long. That's going to be Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Now remember, that's before the market closes. And this is the first time that Jerome Powell will have an opportunity to speak with that new core PCE price index number that came out on Friday. Right now, all eyes are on him to see what he's going to do with rates. The economic data as it stands today is showing that the Fed has a lot more room to cut rates. And of course, President Trump is pressuring Jerome Powell and the Fed to lower rates as much as possible. And we'll see, maybe at some point he caves, or at least at this meeting, gives us some hint that he might be changing his stance with regards to rate cuts or raises or staying the same. Give us some clarity is all we want. Now, we don't have a rate statement coming out for the US this week, but we do have it coming out for other markets around the world. We're going to start things off to our neighbor to the north. Well, maybe our 51st state if the president has his way. We're talking about a rate statement from the Bank of Canada. Now, right now, all expectations are that they're going to drop 25 basis points from 2.75% down to 2.5%. That will happen Wednesday, 15 minutes into our trading day at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Time. So be ready for that one if you're doing anything with the Canadian dollar. The past few months have shown real significant strength for the Canadian dollar. Now, let's move on to our next rate statement, which is happening on Thursday. That's going to be the European Central Bank. They are also expected to cut their rates from 2.4% down to 2.15%. That would equate to a 25 basis point cut for both Canada and for the Europeans. Now, over the past few months, the euro has been surging against the US dollar, and so has the Canadian dollar. Unfortunately, the dollar, US dollar, has been sliding, and that might not be a bad thing. It might actually be by design. As we know, Scott Bessent, who's the Secretary of the Treasury, has said publicly, I want a weaker dollar. So does President Trump. And the quote-unquote invisible hands of government may be pushing that dollar lower. Certainly, if you look at the trend, it's been making lower lows and lower highs, although we're coming right into an area of demand here, which may cause it to bounce, but I do think we're going to continue to go lower. Now, let's look at more economic data. We're going to talk about jobs. This is a very big week for unemployment numbers. We start things off earlier in the week. Again, there's major announcements happening almost every single day. We'll start off with Tuesday's announcement, which is going to happen at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. That's the JOLTS job openings. Then we move to Wednesday, which gives us the ADP non-farm employment change at 8:15. That's going to be an hour and 15 minutes before the markets open. Thursday gives you the normal unemployment claims at 8:30. And then the first Friday of the month is a biggie. We have the unemployment rate and non-farm employment change. As it stands today, the expectation is that the unemployment rate is going to stay at 4.2%. Any deviation from that could really raise concerns about what the Fed is going to do with interest rates. Remember, they have a dual mandate: stable pricing, which of course is the core PCE price index number, and jobs, full employment, and that, of course, is the unemployment rate. So it's going to be a busy week. I think the market's going to be fairly volatile. Nothing really major on the earnings front, but certainly Jerome Powell's comments and major rate announcements for Canada and Euro could drive our markets, and, of course, the jobs number on Friday. That's it, my friends, for the Monday Morning Must-Knows. We will see you next week.